the operators who are not directly engaged in this operation are being ordered to be evacuated to safer locations.
An explosion was reported by both the plant operator and the Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency. They say the sound of the blast was heard around the suppression pool, the equipment that coordinates the pressure inside the reactor container. The operator says workers were trying to reopen the valve to vent steam and pressure from inside the reactor when the explosion occurred. The agency believes the blast damaged the facility after it found that the air pressure inside the suppression pool had suddenly decreased. The extent of the damage is not known. The agency also says it's possible that radioactive material was released in the explosion. Tokyo Electric Power Company says the reactor's fuel rods were completely exposed to the air for more than 6 hours last night after water levels fell in the reactor core. Workers have been trying to raise the water level inside the reactor to cool down the fuel rods, which are now submerged to a level just above half of their height. The company says it cannot deny the possibility that the rods began to melt while they were exposed. Higher than usual radiation levels have been reported in Tokyo and other prefectures in the Kanto region just before and after Tuesday morning's explosion at the nuclear reactor in Fukushima, but experts say the levels detected would not immediately affect human health. In Iwaki City in Fukushima Prefecture, about 40 kilometers south of the plant, experts measured 23.7 microsieverts per hour at 4 a.m. local time on Tuesday. That's 470 times higher than the usual figure, but the measurement dropped to 1.5 microsieverts by the afternoon. In Tokai Village, Ibaraki Prefecture, 110 kilometers south of the plant, radiation of 5.8 microsieverts was measured by scientists who reported the figure to the national government as required by law. The figure reportedly fell to 1.3 microsieverts by 5 p.m. Abnormally high radiation was also reported in other prefectures, including Tokyo, which are located south of the troubled plant. In Tochigi Prefecture, the local government reported radiation of 0.86 microsieverts, about 20 times higher than usual as of 9 a.m. Tochigi officials say such levels remain lower than 1/100th the amount people can safely be exposed to over 1 year. University of Tokyo Associate Professor Keiichi Nakagawa says higher radiation levels in Tokyo are believed to be linked to leaks from the nuclear plant in Fukushima, but he added that the detected levels are very low and pose no health danger at all. A series of nuclear plant accidents in Fukushima Prefecture reminds us of the 1986 Chernobyl disaster, the worst in the history of nuclear power generation. Experts say the leaks at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant are far smaller than those at Chernobyl.
Atsushi Takeda is an expert on safety issues at nuclear power plants. He was involved in an international project to stop the proliferation of radioactive materials after the accident at Chernobyl. He designed a stone coffin, a huge architectural object that could cover an entire nuclear reactor. He said this kind of system is not necessary for the troubled power plant in Fukushima. Takeda, who is with the Nuclear Safety Research Association, says the problems at the Fukushima No. 1 power station will not develop into a critical situation that requires such a stone coffin. He said that in the accident at Chernobyl, nuclear fission inside the reactor not only did not stop, but accelerated. He said it was like stepping on the accelerator instead of the brakes. Takeda says that at the Fukushima power plant, the operation of the reactors was automatically halted safely when the earthquake struck, judging from what he saw on TV reports. He says the system is designed to stop reactors when an earthquake is detected, and that the system is installed at all nuclear power plants. Takeda says the troubles at the Fukushima plant began when the cooling systems failed. He says various chemical reactions occurred because of the retained heat. He says each reaction was caused by a small amount of energy, and the whole situation gradually became worse. The size of the accident is clearly different from the size at Chernobyl. accident at the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant in 1979, the temperature of the core rose just like the reactors at the Fukushima power plant. Takeda said the accident at 3 Mile Island occurred while the reactor was still in operation, while the troubles at the Fukushima reactors did not begin until after all operations were halted. He said that's why the initial energy was much smaller. However, Takeda pointed out that the situation following the initial trouble seems to be worse than what happened at 3 Mile Island. Takeda says a big difference is that 3 Mile Island's trouble occurred inside the reactor and the fuel rods were damaged and the reactor suffered a meltdown. But he says safety devices attached to the reactor were working normally. Takeda says the trouble involved in the reactor's pressure containment, but other things were working fine. Takeda says that at the Fukushima No. 1 power plant, electrical systems near the reactors became submerged by the onrushing water, causing them to lose almost all of their functions. He says that's why they cannot manipulate the control systems, motors, or valves. He says these systems did not work the way they were supposed to. Asked what needs to be done to end this crisis, Takeda said they must employ all means possible to cool down the reactors. Takeda says the most important thing is to cool down the reactors. He says they must do all they can to pump water into them. He says the heat of the nuclear fuel is generated by the process in which radioactive materials created by nuclear fission are changing into something else and emitting heat. That's why the heat will decrease as the days go by. He says the last resort is to pump in seawater, the procedure that is currently underway, but he says the situation will end eventually if they try everything they can think of.
Some of you may have noticed the way we refer to the nuclear power plants in Fukushima has been changed. The Fukushima No. 1 nuclear power plant will be called the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. In the same way, the Fukushima No. 2 power plant will be the Fukushima Dai-2 power plant. The National Police Agency says the death toll from the disaster has now topped 3,300. Casualties, including those missing, have reached at least 10,000. Miyagi Prefecture has 1,619 confirmed deaths. Police say the final death toll may exceed 10,000 in that prefecture alone. 1,000 bodies have been found in Minami Sanriku town, which was devastated by the tsunami waves. Around 8,000 residents are thought to be missing. That is about half the town's population. Iwate Prefecture has 1,193 confirmed deaths. Fukushima Prefecture has 506 confirmed deaths. Police say 2,220 people are still missing there. Altogether, the confirmed death toll is now 3,373. At least 7,558 people are officially unaccounted for. Over 440,000 people are in shelters in northeastern prefectures. Some shelters have yet to receive essential supplies such as food and water. Relief efforts are being hampered by a shortage of fuel for trucks and ambulances. Now here's the weather forecast.